let's start to record and let's start the seminar. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are deeply honored to have the world-famous landscape photographer, Mr. Marc Adamus, to present tonight. Marc, would you like to say hi to everyone so we know it's you?
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. Nice to virtually meet you.
Thank you, Marc.
Hi.
Okay, so the title for the seminar tonight is The Landscape Journey, Immerse Your Audience in the Same. It's hosted by APA, Atlantic Photographers Association. I'm the Executive Secretary, Mei Zhan, and I will be your host tonight. The event is also co-hosted by the following organizations: Calgary Chinese Association of Photography, Boston Chinese Photography Association, North Texas Asian Photographer Association, Photographic Society of New Jersey, Timelight Art Association, Wide Angle Camera Club, Bay Area Photography Association, People's Photography Exchange Association USA, San Francisco Chinatown Photographic Society, Houston Chinese Photographic Society, CCACC Photo Club, VA Photo Club, Karen and Chong Photography Club. We appreciate the overwhelming support from the organizations and from everyone here. Now let me take 2 minutes to introduce APA. The Atlantic Photographers Association is a thriving nonprofit Chinese photography association that stands as one of the North America's largest and most vibrant, boasting over 1,000 active registered members across a few continents. Our community thrives on sharing and learning. Currently, there are 66 talented and passionate volunteers managing the association. Beyond our 7 publications monthly, insightful photographer interviews, and special albums, we also offer enriching guest sessions featuring outstanding photographers. Moreover, we present an area of avenues for member engagement. Those encompass collaborative WeChat group sharing, enriched workshop sessions, exclusive internal member contests, and the highlight of our calendar, the annual worldwide sharing of the most favorable photo of the year. It opens to the public and everyone is welcome to participate. Guided by the principle of let 100 flowers bloom, we are dedicated to inclusivity, fostering an environment where photographic art can flourish and evolve. The Atlantic Photographers Association attributes its success to inspirational contributions and collaborations of its members. Today and tomorrow, the exceptional quality of the work of our members continues to guide our journey with a sense of purpose. The seminar tonight is one of the many seminars we host for the community. However, this is a very special one. We truly appreciate that Mr. Marc Adamus takes time from his very, very busy schedule to share his experiences and insights. Now, let me introduce Mr. Marc Adamus as if he needs introduction. I believe everyone knows him, but still, let me read it through because it's truly impressive. Mr. Marc Adamus is a world-renowned landscape photographer with over 20 years of professional experience and 3 decades of leading outdoor expeditions. His work has taken him across all 7 continents and more than 50 countries, where he has both photographed and guided. Marc's striking imagery has been featured on the covers of numerous books and magazines, and his commercial clients include Fortune 500 companies. He has also mentored dozens of acclaimed professionals. For over 20 years, Marc has been celebrated as a visionary and innovator, consistently pushing the boundaries of modern landscape photography. Now, let's welcome Mr. Marc Adamus to share the presentation. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, and Marc will answer your questions. You will also have an opportunity to unmute yourself at the end to ask Marc directly if you have more questions. Okay, now, please, Marc. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, May. Also, thank you to Larry. Thank you to everybody in the association. I can only agree with what you've said so far. It certainly is a vibrant association that you have, filled with very passionate members, a number of whom I've had a chance to work with personally in different places around the world, and nothing but great things to say, really.
Thanks, Marc.
So, thanks for having me. We have a lot to cover here. I'll ask you guys to forgive me. Just first off, I do spend most of my life in the wilderness, so the whole computer thing, the whole Zoom thing, it's not it doesn't come too naturally
You're
to
doing
me.
great.
Yeah, but we'll get there, right? We'll get there. I've got some stuff I'd like to share with you just about my process, what I like to do, how I see things. Of course, I've got my book right here next to me, my new book, The Way Home, which is a compilation of my journey over the last 20 years. We really did a great job, I think, printing it. It's a fine art limited edition book. Took me more than a year to write. It's also a written book. Plus, it's got 168 images in it. Yeah, so I started this journey of mine 30 years ago, really, a little over that. Now, I was just really fascinated by the outdoors. I always wanted to travel. Actually, even when I was a kid, I would make my parents go, to the local automobile association to get guidebooks, on different places that I wanted to, I was reading these guidebooks at 9 years old, just thinking like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to be here and here. And, but when I was in my teens, I think it was the just the freedom of being in a wild environment, not so much the cities, the urban environment, but really the wild environment that moved me the most. Really, when I go out into the wilderness, for me, it's truth. It is the way that the world has evolved to be, and it is just you never know what you're going to find, right? And it's just calls me very deeply, almost in an intangible way. I just it wasn't long before I just started skipping school and just wandering around the forests, and those journeys became bigger and bigger, and I started mountaineering when I was in my late teens. I was always the guy that was trying to get the group together, get some friends together, go out into the wilderness, go on this adventure, go on that adventure. I was kind of always the organizer of these adventures. And of course, at some point I just started carrying a camera with me. I think it was about 98, 99. I just started taking a camera around with me just to document my adventures. And I think that it's at that point, where a lot of people probably listening to this can relate, right? We first pick up a camera in a documentary sense. We want to record what we're doing. And for me, this was important, but it wasn't until some years later that I found the work of some other professional photographers to be extremely inspirational. The late Galen Rowell was a huge inspiration to me. The fact that he would go to the ends of the earth and photograph these places and these perspectives that almost nobody had ever seen, and also make very high quality, very compelling images from these places. That really moved me. I've always been the kind of guy that just likes to take the road less traveled. I feel like if I've seen pictures of that place a lot before, that's probably one reason why I'm not going to go to that place. I like to believe that there is more of this world that is unseen than has been seen. There's more that has not photographed that has been photographed. And I think that that may surprise some people to hear. I think that in this day and age, we have a tendency to believe that everything's been done. It's all been shot. Our social media is flooded with the same pictures from the same places over and over and over again. And we just kind of, when we travel, we go to the places maybe that we went to when we were a kid, or when we went to 20 years ago, and we see, well, wow, now there's all these tourists there, and it didn't used to be like that. So there's just this overwhelming sense that between social media and between our own travels, a lot of times that there's more people, going out there than ever before, and there's everything's just been seen and been done. But I would say it's just the opposite almost. I would say that people don't explore as much anymore. I think that if you look at how easy it is to get information on travel these days. You want to plan a vacation to France, okay, just ask your AI assistant to do it. And, 2 seconds later, you've got an itinerary that probably goes to all of the same places that everybody else is already going to, and gives you all of these ideas, that other people have reviewed really highly. And, no surprise that everybody ends up at the same places, right? I mean, it's what the internet, it's what social media, it's what everything tells us to do. Those are the places that are getting the attention. Whereas you look at what travel was like 20, 30 years ago when I started, we didn't have all this information. We had to explore. If we got lost along the way, if it didn't work out as planned, we had to make a new plan, and, I think that just the process of doing that really taught me to embrace the unpredictable aspects of things, to embrace the adventure, the moments, that you have out there, and to be comfortable, just flying by the seat of your pants, just going where the wind blows you, and I think that is something that I have taken and I have translated into the type of photography that I do. I think it would also surprise a lot of people to know that almost all of my photos, at least 80–90% of my photos, were taken the very first time that I was ever at whatever that place is. And I think that there is this culture of, I just want to go back again and again and again and again to get the light right. And I want to go back to the same place, that I already know. And I want to, try to copy this image here until I get it right. And don't get me wrong, that's great. That's great for learning. I mean, boy, if you're learning anything, I mean, if I was learning to cook, I'd be looking up recipes, from great chefs, and I'd be trying again and again, trying to get them right, trying to get them glean whatever information I can from others, and go back and try it again and again. But myself, I do a type of photography that I call exploration photography. And I think first you have to have a pretty good mastery of the fundamentals of photography. You have to have pretty good mastery of the technical basics, the compositional basics, because to do exploration photography, you have to break a scene down that you have not seen before and you didn't know entirely what to expect. And you have to react very quickly to changing light and atmosphere and conditions. But it is the process of solving that puzzle that I really love the most. And I love doing it with people. Almost all of my trips are with other people, even if I've never been there before. I love showing others how I break a scene down and make good photographs out of it. I take groups, everyone from beginners to the very, very specialized groups of professionals to all corners of the earth. I would say that my main passion these days is not just the photography itself, but it's the designing of trips. It's something that I've always loved. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I love taking people to those other places, the other 90% of the world that you don't see every day on social media, on Google, that's, just absolutely as beautiful as anything that you do see. And let me give you an example here. Just a moment ago, here, just last week, actually, I was up in, let's see if we can share here. Y'all see that there? We got a map up here. So last week I was right here, and I've been taking groups up in here this whole summer. I was right about here. Right there. So it doesn't look like a place on a map where you might want to, consider going on vacation, does it? I mean, you can zoom in on Google and it doesn't even look like there's anything there. Even Google doesn't have the satellite information on this location, right? You can try to zoom in, you can try to, find your way around, but the only way you're gonna really get to know a place like this is to go there.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it
this
still
right here.
Denali in Alaska? Is that
Yeah, it's just on the border. This
on
is
the border?
Canada over
Okay.
here. That's Alaska. You can kind of see this little border right here.
Mhm.
They actually call this the boundary range, and I've been there with groups for the last 5 weeks, and we have had a blast. Let me tell you, it's just been a super lot of fun introducing to people to camping, to helicopters, a lot of times for the first time. And it's just the landscape up here is just blowing their minds. We got 1,000-foot waterfalls, turquoise blue lakes, wildflowers everywhere. Some of the world's most photogenic glaciers, peaks that look like Patagonia. I mean, you name it, we got it up here. But I want you to see this here. This is a chain of mountains. It's a chain of mountains that goes all the way, really, if you break it down from Anchorage to Vancouver. Now, in that chain of mountains right here, if you stop just before you get to Vancouver, if you stop right about here, in that chain of mountains there, that is almost 2,000 miles. And there are two roads that cross it. That's it. Two roads in the entire thing. And I can tell you that not a lot of people are going here. I mean, let's look at all of the mountains in North America. The Rocky Mountains, Glacier, Canadian Rockies, Cascades, the Sierra. Do you see anything else that looks like this on the map? Probably not, right? This is an unbelievable area on Earth, and it is just waiting for photographers. I tell you, you got to know a thing or two about logistics to get out there. You got to find some boats, you got to find some helicopters, you got to find bush planes, you got to find guides. A lot of things have to happen, but I love getting people into places like that. And they love being there. So that's a lot of what we do all over the world. I absolutely love this stuff. We do this type of thing on all 7 continents. We've got boats, we've got all sorts of tools to get the job done. I feel like the first time that I've ever seen something, it just always sticks in my mind above and beyond maybe anything else, that I'll ever do, and from that place. No matter how many times you ever go back, I think they say there's nothing like your first time, right? For me, I think that really puts me in the mood to capture it. Really puts me in the mood for photography when things are fresh and new and I'm like never been there before and I'm seeing this big mountain, this big glacier for the first time and I'm like, wow, I just really want to make a great image, right? And I think that that's one of the reasons that I keep traveling, that I just keep exploring the world, that I just keep finding ways to, hook up with guides and boats and pilots and just all sorts of people from all walks of life in the guiding community, in the outdoor community, just in an effort to put together these really unique kinds of trips. Um, these trips are instructional as well. We love to teach photography. We love to, but more than anything, just get people into absolutely amazing places. Let me see if I can switch back here. I'm just gonna go down here. Let's see, preview. Okay, there we go. Y'all can see that now, right? We got that up here right now, May. Hopefully. I'm just going to take you through a few of my favorite images. Exploring, right? We all know bristlecone pine trees. And if you don't know bristlecone pine trees, you better go see some bristlecone pine trees sometime in your life because they are like nothing else. Like, sometimes a picture just can't do it justice. And I think that that's always true of bristlecone pine trees. Like, you really got to see them up
Mark,
close. You
we
can see
still see
them.
the map, not the tree yet.
No, you can't see the tree. Okay. So I got to
Mhm.
hit okay. Oh, no, it says screen is being paused. Okay.
You
Here.
can stop share and share again.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. We'll just go ahead and do that.
Mhm.
There we go. Share. Okay, so we're back to sharing now. All
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
There we go. Where is the bristlecone pines again? Let's see. What do you think? You see it now?
Not yet.
No.
Did you share?
Yeah, I am sharing.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, we see it.
Okay, we
Yeah.
got that.
Mhm.
We got it down. I told you, you got to be patient with me this whole Zoom thing. I've
You're
got a
doing
lot of photos to
okay.
share and a lot of materials to share, but boy,
Yeah.
computers and me, it's like we are from opposite worlds. Very difficult. It just got off a glacier here, so bear with me. All right, so like I was saying, bristlecone pines, right? So we've got this image here. Beautiful stuff. Not a place that I had ever been before because I had to hike about 7 or 8 miles to reach this particular location. But you can see that, it really paid off here. There was a lot of depth in the image, a lot of framing. How do I do that, right? That's the question. Like, how do I go to a place that I've never been before and create an image like this? I'm sure that's what you guys want to know. Well, when I'm walking around with my lens, the first thing that's going through my head is background focal point. Now, a focal point, generally, we need some light, right? The eye is going to be attracted to the light more than anything else. But, there's fewer background focal points in landscape photography than there are foregrounds. And I think if you think about that, right, it makes sense, right? I mean, a foreground could be something this big. Foreground could be a tiny little thing, whereas there's only a few, great mountains, a sun star, a, giant tree that really separates itself from all its surroundings, right? So I think a lot of my photography, as I alluded to in the title of this presentation here today, is about creating depth. It's about bringing the viewer into and through the scene, right? It's about making the viewer say, I can feel like I'm there. I feel like I could just walk right in, right? So it starts with identifying a good background focal point, right? Because there's fewer of them. But once you've done that, and I think that's the easy part, right? Once you've done that, how do you get to the next step? Like, how do you frame that? How do you create leading lines? How do you, create depth? How do you draw the viewer from that near thing to that far thing? And that's what I'd love to talk to you guys about today. For me, when I'm walking around, I'm thinking also layers, leading lines, or framing. And I'm going to give you some visual examples of each one of those types of things right here in these images, which are all from explorations that I've done. And I mean exploration, meaning it was the first time that I've ever been to that particular place, the first time that I've ever done that particular scene. So in this case, I knew that I had a sun star, that I could put behind this big tree. And I said, well, I'm going to use a wide angle here and I'm going to try a framing composition. So I climbed up into a different tree and I held the camera down below me and I used the LCD screen to take a picture here. And I was able to get that all in focus. Did a couple of focal point blends, a little bit of focus stack on it, and I was able to get the framing the way that I wanted to. So I'm looking for my background focal point first, and then I'm saying, am I going to have a bunch of layers like a dark light, dark light, dark light, or mountains and then fog and then mountains and fog? That's a layered composition. Am I going to do a framing composition? This is a framing composition. Or am I going to do a leading lines composition? So those are the two basic things that are going through my head. But what if it's an 800 millimeter? Okay, can you all see that? We got that there, May?
Not yet. We
No, it's
see.
not gonna do it. All right. I hope I don't
You
have
can
to go
repeat
back
the
here.
stop sharing and the share thing.
Yeah, but if I have to do that with every image, that's gonna be.
When you share, remember to click on sharing the whole screen. Then whatever on your screen will pop up.
Yeah, it just says share. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll hope.
Yeah.
Says you are screen sharing, so we're gonna go with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think if I exit this, then it's gonna probably open another window here. Yep.
No, now we only see you. No
Okay,
image
well,
anymore. Yeah.
all right, we can skip through some of that here then. Let's go back to, yeah, let's see, there we go. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. I tried. I had like 100 images up there that I really wanted to share, but unfortunately it ain't happening.
I mean, when you share, when you click the share button, you need to click the screen, the one with our headshots on the screen, and then you will see. Yeah.
Well, when I click the share button, it pops up all the windows that are open on the computer, right?
Then you pick the upper left corner. It says share the full screen.
No, May.
Yeah.
Marc
now
need to Marc need to
now you see the
share
full
the
screen.
I see the word. I see the photo. Yeah, we're good now.
Can you see this photo now?
Yeah, I can see the photo of the sand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we got it then.
Yeah, we got it. We see the.
Got it. You see that? All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. Yeah. Sorry. We did test this to begin with.
We tested it. We tested
yes.
it.
Not their fault. Totally on me. I take responsibility. Computers.
So Marc, now you understand why we don't get it when we were on the tour with you.
Yeah. Okay. So we got this whole screen sharing thing down here, and now we're stuck with this picture of a leaf. All right. So let's talk about this here. So I love abstract images. I love intimate scenes. I love grand landscapes. I really love it all, but when you have all of these different types of landscapes here around you all the time, it can be hard to make sense out of the world. So we've talked a little bit about what I'm looking for a background focal point, right? But what if the background focal point is the entire image, right? If it's an intimate scene like this, then it really relies on texture and color and form and contrast. And we're not really trying to lead the eye anywhere. We're just trying to, have the viewer absorb the subject. And I think that's one of the reasons why really intimate scenes like this, they don't typically require a lot of post-processing either. You don't have a lot of different types of landscape features here. You don't have like a lot of different types of color, of light. It's just, it is what it is, what the camera photographed plus some small adjustments, and that's it. So, I mean, everything here, just one zone. Now, you take a shot like this, on the other hand, it's a super wide angle, grandiose landscape that needed, 5 points of focus stacking and 2 different exposures and a lot of different, compositional elements all tied together. I think this is the type of scene that I'm known for, but I also really love those intimate scenes. Now, when I'm composing a scene like this is a leading line shot. So I have a dominant compositional structure, which is my leading lines. But within that compositional structure, I also have some transitions. So I use the word transitions a lot to explain my process to people, to convey what I'm doing to people. And what a transition is for me is it is something that is unbroken that goes towards the light source. Let me give you some examples here. The aurora in this scene is the light source, right? But we have a big to small. The water is getting bigger to smaller, right? And as it goes from big to small, it leads back towards where the light source is. Also, the rocks are going from big to small, and they're leading back towards where the light source is. But also we have another type of transition. We have something that I call level of blacks. Level of blacks is how you take a really complicated scene and just tie it all together and give the viewer the sense that this is near and this is far. If you look at these rocks down here, they're deep, dark, black. At the darkest, they're almost 100% black. But if we look at these mountains back here, there's nowhere where those mountains are nearly as dark as those rocks. So those 2 transitions plus the dark to light transition draw the viewer towards the light source and draw the viewer back into the mountains, into the aurora, and give that sense of 3-dimensional depth. I think you'll notice that type of 3-dimensional depth in a lot of my images. If we look at something like this here, well, we've got some light on the mountains, light in the sky, but even though it's more contrasty back here, the deepest, darkest blacks are only about 50-60%, whereas in the foreground areas, the darkest it gets is 80 or 90%, maybe 100% black, right? So that again gives the viewer the sensation that this is closer and that's further. Once again, you have the big things to the small things, right? If I was just a little bit lower and I only had big flowers, then the eye just wouldn't go anywhere. And in addition to that, we have a cool to warm. We have a dark to light. Everything is leading my eye back towards where the light is. How about something like this? You put that sun in the shot and you've got a focal point. But what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that this scene looks really dark. When I take this photo, or in this case, when my drone takes the photo, it is really, really black. The only thing that I can see is this sun over here and maybe a little bit of highlight along this ridge, and everything else is hidden. So I just have to know that it is there. And I think that is a real paradigm shift in the last 20 years of photography, because we never used to shoot like this. When we shot in film at the beginning of my career, you just didn't have the kind of range to be able to control a scene like this. But these days, if you can see the light, you can shoot the light. It's always there. And I think that a shot like this is the type of shot with the high dynamic range, taken from a drone, taken in a place that I've never been, really, it's very difficult for beginners. It's very difficult on many, many levels. but it's extremely rewarding if you learn how to do it. I think that when you look at beginners in photography, the first thing they want to do is they want to take only the shots that look good in the camera. A shot like this can't look good in your camera. It doesn't matter whether you take it with the phone or the drone or your camera or anything. We don't have that kind of technology. The sun is, in your phone is going to look, weirdly HDR over here, and you're not going to have the luminosity and the glow and the diffusion that shows the viewer that, hey, this is further away back here. Look at those level of blacks, right? And then you go and take it with your big camera, or your drone as a raw file, and everything is black. So, a shot like this, it doesn't look good in the camera, but the more experience you have shooting the light, the more you know that you can extract that detail, you can control those details, and you can bring it out. And then when you do that, the sun star is a really good focal point in the image. So I love the light. I've always been fascinated by it. Even back in the film days, I say, we didn't used to shoot like this very much. Well, I tried. I was known as the sun star photographer for a while. I would put like a 3-stop ND reverse graduated filter on here, and I would try, but I could never have nearly the kind of control that you have these days. And I think that as people evolve as landscape photographers and they learn more about shooting the light, they're more inclined to want to try shots like this, especially once they've seen a little bit of my post-processing, or a little bit, once they kind of further their own knowledge about post-processing. I'm going to give you guys a little piece of advice here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how to shoot light in landscape photography. And I want you to remember that this is important. The AI that's transcribing this right now. Okay, AI, you can go ahead and highlight this. This is important. All right. The stronger the light is, the more you look into it. That is how you shoot light. So when the light's really, really, really soft and it's at your back and it's twilight, it's alpenglow, it's pink pastels on the horizon, that's the time to shoot the light at your back, when the light's very soft. But then the sun comes up, and when the sun comes over the horizon and it hits the mountains, that's a great time to look, to the side. Have that sun at 90-degree angle to your subjects. But by the time it's 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. and the sun is all the way out in the scene, look into the light. That's how you control the light. It's very important. If I'm shooting a rainforest, if I'm shooting an ice cave, if I'm shooting something like that, we want to look into the light. Something like this that's taken at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're looking right into the light because we don't have any shadows. Everything is just the fringe of everything illuminated. We don't have, distracting shadows. And this is where people get confused, is people think that there's a problem with really strong light. There's not a problem with really strong light. You can record any amount of light. The problem is not the light, it's the shadows. And it's the shape of the shadows. So when you have, a shot taken at 10 o'clock in the morning, 3 hours after the sun comes up, this one right here was taken 2 hours after the sun comes up. When you have a shot that's taken at that time of day, look into the sun, because then you will not have those distracting shadows all over the place. And that will really add a lot of harmony, to your image. Now, this obviously is a framing composition. And it's obviously, we've got a cool to warm transition. We've got some big to small transitions leading the eye back towards the light. How about this one? This is a twilight shot, and we've got a framing composition, and we've got a big to small transition. We've got a cool to warm transition. But look at this right here, this level of blacks, huh? These mountains back here, if these were just as black as these mountains here, the eye would go nowhere, right? So that level of blacks in landscape photography is really a critical thing. These transitions that I always talk about are really critical things. But why is that? Why specifically is that? This is why, okay? So when I am looking at people, when I'm walking through the world, I can understand the spatial relationships between all things really quickly and really easily. And the reason that I can understand those spatial relationships is because it's moving. Everything's in motion. When I'm walking through a rainforest, it's an immersive, amazing experience. But when I take out the camera, it's complete and total chaos. And the reason for that is there's too much stuff there and we can't make sense of it. So what I'm trying to do in all these transitions, these level of blocks, this big to small, this cool to warm, this dark to light, this compositional structure that forces the eye towards a background focal point, is I am trying to move the eye. I am trying to create the sensation of motion. I am trying to make up for what the camera doesn't have, and not just the camera, but all two-dimensional mediums. So it's what painters do. It's what all sorts of two-dimensional artists do when they want to give a lifelike sense of being in a place, right? That's how you do it. That's the secret formula. That's how you put together all of these pieces of a puzzle. Because as landscape photographers, we have more pieces in our puzzle than anybody else does. No one has as many pieces as we do. And I love really complex scenes. I've said before, the rainforest is my favorite place to teach other photographers. And I love the mountains. Don't get me wrong. I love all places. But, when you have a really complex scene, it really shows off, this system that I talk about all the time of adding transitions and finding a good compositional structure, right? The other thing we just talked about, though, when we were looking at one of those sun shots, taken at 10 a.m., was dynamic range, though. The stronger the light is, the more you look into it. Well, what do you do if, into it means looking right into the sun at, 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning? Well, you have to know this right here, dynamic range. You have to know how much do you have and how much can you extract from the file. A lot of my very best images look absolutely terrible in the camera, and this is why. A lot of people on my tours, they only like to shoot at sunrise and sunset, and that is just not something that I do a whole lot of all the time. I shoot at all times a day. When I made my book, when I go through my website, when I look at my own images, I would say that the most likely time of day for me to shoot is actually about 2 hours before sunset or 2 hours after sunrise, when the light is filling the whole landscape and showing off different aspects of the scene from the foreground to the background. But if I don't understand which way to look into that light, and I don't understand how much dynamic range I have, and I don't know what that shot's going to look like when I get back and post-process it, I'd be missing a lot of shots. So I always go back to these two things, creating the sense of motion and understanding how much dynamic range you have. I feel like those are fundamentally the two ways in which the camera sees differently than your eye. So when we get into the composing the scene and also the post-processing of the scene, these are the two things that we really need to look at the most. And, sometimes people just happen to, photograph a really great image that has a lot of depth in it, and I'm sure that it has these things that we just talked about here. I'm sure that it has, good framing layers or leading lines. And I'm sure that it has good transitions, that lead the eye towards the light source. But, always like to try, on the trips that we do to explain to people to be able to articulate why specifically things work and why they don't work. Now, if you are doing an intimate scene of a leaf sitting on the ice and you don't want to move the eye anywhere and you want to say my entire image is just about this one thing, great. Terrific. That is also, if you want to confuse the viewer as to the sense of scale, maybe you just want to do an abstract of lichen, on the side of a rock or something. Great. That's terrific. We maybe we don't need all of this, right? But for me, I like to create these really deep images that take the viewer on a visual journey through all this stuff. I like to photograph the rainforest, and by that I mean I like to photograph the whole rainforest, not just, a single leaf. So with this in mind, let's go back and take a look at a couple more images. So right here we have this lone tree, and it is being tormented by the fury of the winds in the Patagonia fjords, which, if you don't know, is my favorite place on the entire earth. I absolutely love Patagonia, and I love the fjords. If we got back out the Google map, I could show you a similarly large sized areas where absolutely nobody is doing any photography. And what it is it's a blend of this beautiful rainforest, these beautiful bonsai-like trees, and huge Patagonian mountains. But in this case, it wasn't the landscape itself necessarily that made the image, it was the weather. And I got to tell you, the worse the weather is, sometimes the better the photography is. I know that's not what people like to hear, but it's true. It's a lot of my best photos came in those moments where I was out in a terrific storm. And in this case, we had to anchor our boat for the day. We had to actually tie it up using some mooring ropes and some safe harbor, just so we didn't get blown away here. And as the furious gusts were hitting the boat, I caught sight of these little whirlwind tempests kind of blowing past this one point of land where you had this little tree. And every so often, maybe every 10, 15 minutes, one of these things would come rolling through in just such a way that it showed off this one little tree on the point. And I was freaking out. I got to tell you, I came back down and I told the whole group, oh my God, this is the best shot of the whole trip. You guys got to get out here now. And they're all like sitting down for lunch, thinking like the last thing we're going to do is go out, outside right now. And I'm like, no, this is the shot. I'm telling you. And they're all like, what? I have no idea what you're saying. We're getting blown over sideways here. And I'm like, look at this tree on the point. Every once in a while, this tree gets hit by this, these swirling winds that are actually so strong that they're blowing the water out of the fjord. This is water getting blown out of the fjord. It's not fog or mist or anything like that. So, they watch it for a little while, and I'm just like telling them to fire like crazy every time one of these things comes through. And finally, they see it. Finally, they get what I'm saying. And we bring it back in, we look at it in post-processing, and they're like, wow, I can't believe that. It was just like this, a quarter of a second or less, that this shot occurs, and only maybe once every 10 minutes. And the reason that it occurs is atmosphere. Atmosphere, motion, those are the rarest things, to be able to capture, but they're just so important. A lot of my very best shots, when I look through all the personal favorites on my website, you guys can do it sometime. You go to my website, marcadamus.com. There's only 3 shots out of 60 shots in my personal favorites that were taken within 30 minutes of a sunrise or a sunset. Whereas there's 57 other shots on there that were taken at all kinds of other times of the day. But of those 57 shots, almost all of them had one thing in common, and that is atmosphere. The atmospherics whether it's water blowing out of a fjord or mist, on a lake in the summer, or clouds parting to reveal a mountain range, or haze settling in the low valleys at night, or God beams coming through the redwoods. We all know that one, right? That was an easy one. When any kind of atmosphere is a landscape photographer's dream, and a lot of times the best atmosphere come in the stormiest places. I think that maybe when people are wishing for, pink underlit clouds, maybe they should actually be wishing for 80-mile-an-hour winds to come through on the fjord. I think that, maybe when people are just hoping to stay warm and dry and beautiful, conditions, maybe they should go out there in the storm and wait for it to, if nothing else, just wait for the storm to be over. Look at where, people, not just me, but just look at where people do a lot of great landscape photography, right? Iceland, Patagonia, Alaska, New Zealand, Norway, Antarctica. It's, on down the list. It's almost, if you took that list and you made a list of all the stormiest places in the world, it would be almost the same list. And I think there's a reason for that. I think because when it's good in those places, it's really good. And a large part of that is atmosphere. Take a look at some of that blowing snow across this great, completely unnamed peak in the Patagonian fjords, right? If it's not for that blowing snow up there, we don't have a shot, right? All of the beautiful atmosphere that's creating the depth in this layered composition, right? So this is a layered composition. We all know what leading lines are. We all know what framing is. Layers is when you have a lot of different repeating patterns, dark light, but look, we still have the transition, right? This is 100% black here. This is 70% black here. This is 30% black here. If that's reversed, my eye goes nowhere. I'm just stuck right there. I'm not drawn into the scene. So why is that? Well, you can have bright things at the bottom of the frame. You can draw the eye, from dark to light, and with the light being the closest thing, but it doesn't work that way as often as it does in reverse. And I think part of that's just because that's what naturally occurs, but the other part of it is this is how we're used to reading. This is how we learn to read the light. And when we walk around in our everyday lives, usually the darkest thing is at our feet and the brightest thing is up above. So we read from dark down here to light up here. And I think another thing that's really important to talk about too is just the creation of a light source. If you don't have a light source in your landscape photograph, make one. When I take a shot like this side of the sky right here is exactly the same as this side of the sky right here. This one's kind of neutral blue and this is kind of neutral blue. But I want the eye to move in one direction. I want the eye to go towards the light. So that is really a key important part of, processing all landscape photographs, especially telephotos, because they don't have that. I think that people oftentimes give up on telephotos. This was a 400 millimeter shot, this shot right here. This mountain is just a tiny little speck way in the distance, but when you see it big on your screen right now, I bet it doesn't feel that way. But telephotos, they look pretty flat. They look pretty boring when you take them. In the field, but by creating a directional light source, much the same type of thing that's built into your wide angle lens, it really draws the viewer into and through the scene. It really creates that three-dimensionality, that depth. Speaking of atmosphere, speaking of Patagonia fjords, here's the craziest mountain I ever found in the Patagonia fjords. I mean, it looks like something entirely computer generated, right? I mean, it's just like, what the hell is that? How does this even look like this? And it's funny because it doesn't look like that from any other angle. It looks like this only from one specific angle. From all the other places, it's just a fin, but from this one point, it looks like a spire. I took my drone out there one day. This is actually a drone shot. And I was just blown away. My guides that were with me at the time, my group with me at the time, everybody was huddling around my screen and just going, wow, I can't believe that's like, how is that even a thing, right? But it was the atmosphere too. It's really the atmosphere that allows it to stand out. And again, it's that level of blacks transition that we've been talking about. How about something a little more moody, maybe just a little quieter? So while we're on the topic of atmosphere here, this has always been one of my favorite images. And I think that it has been one of my favorite images because I can almost hear music in my head when I look at something like this. It almost feels like the waves on the ocean, but you've just got these hints of these great mountains, just enough to add that mystery, in the background and just a little bit of snow kind of blowing, little mist blowing off the glacier. And I think that it also kind of captures a time, a feeling that I had, when I was taking the shot. I was on probably the 16th or 17th day of a pretty difficult backpacking trip that I did solo across this remote mountain range in British Columbia. And I was down in the valley and I was just like always, I'm looking up these mountains and just something's calling me and something's saying, come up higher, you should come up here, see this glacier, see these peaks, I spent 3 hours climbing up this huge hill, probably gained about 3,000 vertical feet, ended up pitching my tent on the edge of the glacier. But and I didn't even really know why. I just really wanted to be there. And I felt like so alone at that moment, but also so just humbled by the power, of the magnitude of these mountains around me. And there wasn't really any shots there. There wasn't really any, traditional, here's some wildflowers and a turquoise lake with a big jagged mountain, type of thing. But I think that just looking sometimes, just listening to, the nature around you is enough, to make, an image. I think when you are really in that flow state as an artist and you really want to describe, something of the emotion, something of how you were feeling at a certain moment, you do have the ability to do that and it will just come to you. And for me, this image has always kind of represented, that mood and that feeling, that I had at the time of just being humbled, by the power and the magnitude of the nature around me. Atmosphere again, though, right? Some more Patagonia fjords. This is a drone shot. So I do a lot of drone shots. I love drones. If you don't love drones, I'm sorry. They are annoying. I agree. If you are around other people flying drones, sounds like a swarm of giant mosquitoes, and we don't like to do that. We don't like to fly our drones, in parks or, cities or play on trails, where they're gonna annoy other people, right? But man, a drone is just a fascinating tool, and I really, if you like drones, you should probably be really excited right now, just because I feel like the technology, I mean, it kind of feels like when digital photography came out, like in 2006 or something, and every model of every camera was just better and better and better, and it was just advancing so fast, and I feel that like that's the way that drones are going right now. And it's the thing that I love about them, first of all, I do a lot of exploration trips, right? So like I've never been here before. Nobody's telling me how to take these photos. I've never seen any photos from here at the time that I'm taking it. The amount of information that you can get really quickly with a drone is just unparalleled, right? There's no way you can see as many perspectives and as many different things as quickly as you do with a drone. So even if you hike up here later on and you take the shot with your camera, you were able to discover that this was here by using that drone, right? But the drone's also an incredible tool for taking pictures. Now, these are some lower res web JPEGs, so I can't really zoom in very much, but I mean, this is a 150 megapixel, image. So I printed this 40 by 60, so they take pretty good pictures too. I think that drones, not only as a tool for exploration, but also as a tool for creating new, unique perspectives on things. If you've ever been on a photo tour before, you know that if there's just one patch of wildflowers there in the whole scene, you know what's going to happen, right? Everybody's going to want to shoot the same thing. It is aligned to even get the shot right. You don't have any of these problems with drones usually. I mean, drones is just, there's so much to do. It's amazing. And sometimes you can't react fast enough. Right? Sometimes it's like, oh, the light just came through the clouds and it's hitting this fog on the hill up there, and I can't get there. I can't get there in time, but my drone can, right? So anything you see in any direction around you is something that the drone can photograph. And I think that we are just limited by our own physical capabilities, our own camera abilities, and our own, limitations, right? There's just too many of them. So the drone releases us from a lot of those limitations and allows us to really be free, in a sense, to pursue the art of photography in more different ways around us, more different perspectives, more different angles, but it also allows me, as a guide and as an explorer, who doesn't know, who's never seen any of these places before, what to do, right? I can fly around a fjord like this, and within, one battery, I will have, 20 different shots that I really want to go back and get. So this is a really big way that our photography is changing, going forward. And I think it's amazing. Um, Going back to the ground here, I think I've included this because it's one of my favorite images. Like it's probably my best known image. And unfortunately, that this tree it doesn't exist anymore. This big branch here on the side broke off the next year after I photographed this tree, and kind of landed right about where you see these flowers here. So it just goes to show you, I guess, like why, I love photography. I think why all of us do photography, a lot of it is because of the impermanence of things around us. It's not just the desire maybe to capture what we've done in our lives, but also, the life of the things around us. It's not forever. There's countless subjects that I have photographed throughout the course of my career that are no longer there. And this is one of them. I mean, it's astonishing. Anybody that's been doing this for 20 or 30 years like I have, go back and look at your shots and tell me how many of those things you could reproduce today. There's all sorts of reasons. I mean, the tree may have fallen over, it might have got burned by a fire, the glacier might have melted, the stream might have changed directions. There's just countless reasons why, the world is changing around us all the time, every day. And it's, photography is now and always will be the best way that we have, in a lot of cases, the only way that we have to document, the life that we have lived and other things around us have lived. Something like this here. this glacier is on its way out. There's now a bunch of rocks down here, big. This is kind of caved in since I took this shot. Most of it's still there though, and it was a pretty amazing moment. And it's one of my few, flaming red underlit, kind of sunrise types of shots, but it was a real fun one to take, despite the fact that I was getting completely soaked, by this waterfall while I was taking it, running down my back and everything as I'm, backed up into this. But again, it's everything we talk about. It's that dark to light. It's that level of blacks. This is a framing composition. Just a little tiny difference, like the difference between the level of blacks here and here, or the level of blacks here and here, show the shape of this peak in the foreground as opposed to it looking like a mostly flat ridge right here, right? So it's these subtleties, these transitions that keep going towards the light that really draw the eye into and through the scene and really tie together these really complex compositions. One more from Patagonia Fjords. Okay, 500 millimeter. I mean, 500, right? So think about that. I'm maybe a quarter mile away from this little tree down here, right? But everything just lined up that morning. It was pretty incredible. The scene only existed for maybe, I don't know, a minute or two. Just at 11 a.m., right? It was dead in the middle of the day when that fog finally cleared. Of course, it was winter, so the light was still pretty low. But what do you see here? I'm looking into the light, right? I'm looking into the light, and therefore the shadows are not distracting, right? It's just the fringe of everything that's illuminated. If I leave you with anything here, in terms of these images that you've seen, the stronger the light is, the more you look into it. This is really a critical thing. Don't worry about dynamic range. Just control the highlights. It's all there. You can bring it back. You can shape it. You can shape it so that the eye goes towards the light source. That's what we're trying to do, is move the eye towards the light using transitions. Level of black, big to small, dark to light, cool to warm, high level of saturation to less saturation, out of focus to in focus. Any kind of cohesive transition that draws the eye towards the light, that is the secret sauce. That is the thing that is going to help you to overcome all of the complex details in a big, deep, three-dimensional landscape like this. Now, if this isn't your cup of tea, if you're more of a, I'm going to shoot an intimate little, scene like this, well, fine, great. That's a pretty nice composition too, right there, right? No problem. But if you want to shoot like me, not only are you doing these intimate scenes like this, but you're also doing these big, grandiose landscapes that really take the viewer on a visual journey from the near to the far. And I think that, it requires maybe more practice, with the light, maybe more practice understanding what you can get out of dynamic range, more practice understanding what you can do in post-processing. When I started post-processing, there was nobody to tell me what to do, because we were all just kind of learning at that time, right? I was started as a film photographer, and I made a career out of film. I did a lot of stock, and then all of a sudden the whole world changed. Digital came along, and when digital came along, there wasn't all the great instructional stuff. There wasn't images that look like this, out there. It didn't exist yet. And so everybody was just kind of learning at the same time. So what I did was I read a little bit on how Photoshop was supposed to work. And then I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, who designed this? It's a bunch of engineers, to design this. I mean, it must never have been anybody that was a painter, because it just wouldn't work like this. It's ridiculous. I have to use what? I have to do layers and erase them to see what's in the next layer using doing what? I mean, it just didn't make any sense, right? Like who does this? Like all I want to do is just paint. I just want to make stuff brighter and darker, and I just want to change the color of things. I want to change the contrast of things, change the texture of things. And I just want to brush it. I just want to brush, 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 brush. And if I can think about it in my head, I just want to start brushing that on there. So I found a way to do that. It was called clone painting. That was the technique that I developed back in the early 2000s. And for about 10 years, nobody could figure it out. Of course, I didn't teach it at that time, which was one of the reasons that nobody could figure it out. But I was making images that looked a lot like this at a time when other people weren't. And there were some people that really didn't like that. And there were a lot of other people that really did like that. And for better or worse, I got a lot of attention for it. And kind of helped me to make a name for myself in photography. And now, I mean, a lot of people do. I mean, there's thousands of people around the world that use my clone paint system, or, in 2017, I started transitioning towards a new system that I call history paint. And, there's a lot of people using the history paint now too. It's not the only way that you can make images like this. It's not, of course not, right? The key that I want to, the thing that the thing that you have to know about Photoshop, or the key thing that you have to know about post-processing, is that whatever technique, whatever thing you do, whatever tools you learn, just practice a lot. It's not something where, I can show you once how to do my technique and then you can, just suddenly be good at it, right? And I don't think anybody should ever expect to do that, right? With any technique in Photoshop, you have to kind of learn it and practice it a lot. They say, 10,000 hours to master an art form? Yeah, I think that's probably what it takes. It takes a lifetime. Even, when I look at my work from 2021 until 2025, that work doesn't look anything like my work from like 2012 to maybe 2017. And that work doesn't look anything like 2006 to 2010, and so on and so forth, so it's a constant evolution, and it's a constant refinement, even after I've been doing this for 20 years. But you've got to practice a lot, whatever system, you pick. There's lots of great systems now. It's not just my system. There's lots and lots and lots of great systems out there right now. But what if we took a look at my system? I can't believe I'm going on YouTube Live and giving this all away to you guys. How's that happening, right?
We should charge $1,000 for
I know I should, but I'm not. I know. No, I mean, this is
times 500.
Look, all right. New class price. There we go. No, it's okay. No, I'm not. I love teaching people, but even more than that, I love going to beautiful locations in the world. I like putting together the kinds of trips that nobody else is putting together, and that's why people come with me, right? So, but yeah, the post-processing doesn't hurt either. So here's a shot we did from a helicopter last night or 2 nights ago. This was at about 10,000 feet of altitude out there in the Boundary Range. Got some big, beautiful mountains, as you can see here. And when we look at this here, you can see that my sensor has not been clean in a while. It's got this big old dust spot on it. I'm just going to minimize the, yep. I'm going to minimize zoom. I'm not going to close zoom. So hopefully you guys can still see this here. So
We cannot see it, I think. We cannot see your screen.
no,
We
okay.
can see your screen, no problem, Mark. No problem.
Okay. You can see the screen? Okay, good.
Yeah, I can see your PS
Okay.
screen. Yeah.
Okay, screen sharing. There we go. It's still on. Haven't touched that part. There we go. Good. So take a look at this. What does it have? Well, it was taken at 157 millimeters, and it's a layered composition. But why did I choose this shot instead of a shot down lower? where the mountain stands out even higher? Well, the reason is simple. It's got all of these beautiful layers back here, and that gives it a level of blacks transition. And it really gives a lot of three-dimensional depth, right? I've got 80% black, I got 50% black, I got 20% black out here right off the bat, right? And I've got some directional light, but this part of the sky is just as bright as that part of the sky. So what could we do, to improve an image like this? I think most people kind of, they come in and they just start, changing stuff, they just start, I wonder what this slider does. I wonder what this slider does. Well, when you really get good at Photoshop, you know what the slider is going to do before you do it. And you also kind of have a vision for what you need to do to make the shot better. Now, I'm not going to post-process this entire shot, but I'm going to give you a little bit of techniques stuff, just showing you how I like to go about doing what I do. So I know that to make this image really successful, we have to draw the eye in towards the light, right? I know the mountains here, and it may sound kind of weird to, well, why would I have a light, coming from, if I make this really bright over here and this dark over here, well, then it's going to draw my eye away from the mountain. Well, you could say that, but what it's really going to do is it's going to give curvature, and it's going to give depth, and it's going to take the viewer on a journey, and it's going to show the viewer where the light's coming from and where it's going to. So I'm going to show you how I like to do that. First of all, I'm in ACR. If you use Lightroom, I don't care. Lightroom, great. If all you use is Lightroom, awesome. No problem. All of this stuff still applies. Doesn't matter one bit. All I'm going to do right here is I'm going to take the exposure down. I'm going to bring the shadows up. I'm going to bring the blacks up. And I am going to maybe add a little bit of whites to this, and I'm going to take this image into Photoshop. Now, the reason that I'm taking this image into Photoshop is because I have a system in Photoshop for recording everything. And right here, it's called history. And I've rearranged the way that my history works so it can record an almost limitless amount of history. So what I've done basically is I've expanded the shadow details so that I don't have any details that are just totally gone, right? I have all the shadows out, but I've also darkened the image a lot. And the reason that I've darkened the image a lot but saved all the shadows from becoming too dark is so that I can rearrange the light and I can shape the light how I want it to go. All right, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use this little dodge tool here. So in this dodge tool, I'm going to say we need to close that bar here. There we go. I'm going to dodge. And what you're going to see is that this area is getting a little bit brighter here. It's getting a little bit brighter, and it's getting a little bit brighter, and it's getting a little bit brighter. Now, what I've just done here is I have made a transition that goes towards the light just with this little dodge tool, and I want you to see the difference. That's what it looked like before when the eye only went to the mountain and only went to those illuminated areas to now. See that? So I'm flooding the scene with light. I am giving it a directional light source right there like that. So I'm showing the viewer that, hey, the light's coming from here and it's going to here. Now, I mentioned that I was using my history to record all of this. Well, you see right next to your history, there's a little box. And what you can do is you can check mark that box and you can go back to before you did any of this just using your history brush. So I can erase everything that I just did just by checking that box right there. See? Goodbye. It's all gone now. But what if I decide later that I did like what I wanted? Well, no problem. You see, every single thing that I've ever done in the processing of this image is being recorded. Now, the step that's being highlighted here, that's what you're seeing on your screen. But the step that is check marked, that's the thing that I can apply using the history brush. And attached to the history brush, I can use selections, I can use blending modes, I can use opacity, I can use different brush types, all those types of things that you like using in layers. But with one big difference, I can do it a lot faster than you can with layers and masks. And this is something that I really like. Speed for me, it keeps me in the flow state. It keeps me moving. I don't like to have to stop and wait for Photoshop to do its thing. I like to just go. I like to move into RAW and say, hey, this time let's get those background layers, man, maybe to stand out a little bit better. So we're just going to make an adjustment that makes those background layers stand out a little bit better. Click on that adjustment and then click back before we did the adjustment. See right here. And that way we can just apply the adjustment like this. So we're going to apply it there, apply it here, apply it here. If you want to use a selection, be my guest. You want to use a mask, no problem. We can just select the inverse of that, you know, whatever you want to do. And then we'll just apply it only to the other side of that, right? Just like that. There we go. Now let's do another adjustment. How about a whites adjustment? This is the white slider right here. Boom, look at that. Now we've got that really strong light coming in there. Maybe we could even tone it a little bit. Okay, that was too much, right? Now I'll do an adjustment like this that's like, maybe that's a bit too much, right? This is too much. And this is too much, but not a problem. We're only doing too much of it so that we can check mark it and then we can mix it back into the original file non-destructively. So we're going to go here and we're going to change the opacity to only 68%. And we're going to apply it mostly down low and up high like this. And we're going to get away from where that blown out spot was on the horizon. So now we didn't do this. That was too much. Now we have done this. We found a happy medium. And if we want to apply even more down there, there you have it, right? So in a few adjustments, we've gone from that to that, right? And we're drawing the eye towards the light source. Now, if you got any little dust spots or whatever, okay, we all know the remove tool. If you don't know the remove tool, then, you know, you have not been very up to date on Photoshop, right? We can just use some AI remove and get rid of that, or we can just clone stamp it out, or we can healing brush it out, or we can do, you know, any one of a number of different things to remove this dust spot and a couple of other dust spots up here. That, in a nutshell, is how I do all of my post-processing. And for the record, I only use 6 different tools in all of Photoshop. And when I do go to Camera Raw, I only use 6 more tools in Camera Raw. That's it. I don't do all of this complicated stuff. I don't even know how the other 98% of Photoshop works. I have no idea. And I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on this, but I'm going to tell you guys right now in the chat that I am not going to have any questions on the technical part of my post-processing today. Now, there's a way more to cover than I could possibly cover in any any Q&A session. I would need at least another 3 hours to show you just how to use each one of those 6 tools in Photoshop and 6 tools in RAW. But if you come on one of my trips, I'm going to process every single one of our photos from all the different shoots that we do just like this. I'm going to put it on video. You're going to get to keep that video and you're going to get links to that video. So, you know, we've got a lot of post-processing video stuff that we give to the people on our trips. But just to keep the chat short and sweet today, I'm not going to answer like technical questions like, Mark, you know, do you prefer this tool over this and why? You know, no. I mean, at the end of the day, believe me this, it does not matter what tools you use in Photoshop. The only thing that matters is, do you like what you see at the end of the day? And did you damage the image in the process, right? Everything's got to be non-destructive, right? I have never used a layer in my life, right? I've never used a mask, never used a selection, never used any of that stuff. Do I damage the image? No. You know why? Because I come back here with nice clean pixels and I erase what I don't like. If I don't like this, I just say, hey, you know, let's put the original pixels back in there, or let's put the later pixels back in there at a different opacity. You know what? And if I want to save this later, watch this. I'm gonna duplicate this image here. I'm gonna say, let's save. Let's just go ahead and file, save as number 1. Okay, so let's just put that on the computer right there. Save as number 1. And then let's say we've got this. This is my other version of the shots. You know, you can create as many different versions of the shot as you want. So let's file save this as the same thing, number 2, okay? And we just saved those 2 images. So maybe someday you don't have your history still, right? Maybe your history's gone and you've got different versions of the image. We've got one version that looks like this, and we got one version that looks like this, and we're wondering, hey, you know, how can I go back, you know, and fix something, you know, non-destructively? How can I go back and mix these 2? Because I don't like all of this and I don't like all of this either. I want to have a mix between the 2, kind of like you would with layers, right? Well, you do this right here. This is clone paint. So you come onto your clone stamp tool. This is clone stamp tool. Option click. Doesn't matter what you option click on. Could be anything. You make sure the 2 images are on the same size. See how they're both 32%? You make sure they're laid on top of each other just like this. And you go option click on something and then control tab. And when you go control tab like this, whoops, we got to get back to Photoshop. Option click, control tab. It will switch to the other image. So now I can see one image through my clone stamp tool. So if we want to mix these later because we screwed it up and we don't like the version and we've lost all of our history and we don't know what to do, well, that's how you do it. You just save a couple different versions of the image and you can clone paint them together just like that. So now I've showed you the history paint and the clone paint, which are my 2 really, really super easy to follow methods of doing Photoshop. And that's how I do it right there. So a little bit of that for you today. It all plays into what we were talking about earlier when we talked about compositional rules, when we talked about directional light, creating that transition that goes towards the light is really the key thing here. So I'm glad I got to show you some of that. I hope you guys can all benefit from it a little bit. And I know we use it all the time on my trips. I know some people that have gotten so good at this method, they're better at than I am at doing this. So hopefully you like that. And I think I will leave you guys with some other thoughts here. We just go back to, let's see, Zoom. There we go. Okay, screen sharing. Stop sharing. There I am again. Whoa. I'm back.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you guys for seeing some of that stuff. I hope that even in the abbreviated time that we have here today, I was able to give you a little bit of background about how I break a scene down that I've never seen before. The types of tools I use to do that, my thought process that I use for doing that, and even a little bit about how I post-process my images. Now, I know with the post-processing, we would need at least 3 more, video segments of an hour and a half a piece to like really get into that. That's a really big fun part of the art, I'm sure, for everybody too, like it is, for me. But we're all really lucky to be doing photography in this age. I think that there's no better way to capture the world around us. I don't think there really is any other way, to capture our experience, that we have in life. And if you want to hear more about some of my experiences out there, we do have my book here, again, The Way Home. You can go ahead and get that on my website. And I mean, hopefully I'll see you on a trip sometime. That's, my passion is these trips all around the world. So you can sign up for my mailing list just by contacting Marc at marcadamus.com. We got trips to all 7 continents every year. And just too many to even list here. You tell me what you like, we'll find a great trip for you. So I guess with that, May, thank you very much. I would love to get into any kind of questions that people have. besides, of course, the highly technical post-processing stuff, which is going to take a long time. So I'm all ears.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Truly inspirational and, such a exceptionally high quality seminar. I guess,
Except for the one Zoom problem.
It's nothing, really nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, people would pay $1,000 to get this class and still worth it. But today you give it free.
I'm such a nice guy, but
yeah, it's just we cannot thank you enough for accepting our invitation and present this to such a large audience. Our Zoom was full from the beginning, 500 people, and we have the YouTube live stream. I know many people are watching that, at least 10 people, 20, I don't know, I lost count. Throughout the process was asking me, I cannot get in, what should I do? I keep sending them the links. So yeah.
But you were busy.
Yeah, I was busy, but I was listening.
Okay.
Yeah, so really truly appreciate what you have taught us in the past and what you have presented today. Our APA members and also the general photography community, I think we truly appreciate your contribution. Not only, you teach us from the technical side or bring us to the wild list that we could not go by ourselves, but I think most importantly, you convey that love, the passion to the majestic nature. You say, okay, it's not just for the photos. You go there, you experience it, you find its beauty, you capture that.
Yeah, it's about the experience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what draws all of us to this. And, that's why I'm so passionate about the trips that we do, is it's about creating amazing experiences. It's not just about teaching photography, even though that is a big part of it.
Yeah, from today's presentation, people can, if they have never interacted with you, I believe they will feel you are a great teacher. But I mean, I have been with your trip for 3 times. And the one time that I truly appreciated, I guess I mentioned it to you the other day, you really tested me. You were standing next to me. My drone was landing because battery was critically low. I was panicked. There was a river in front of us. My drone could fall into the river. And I was panicked. I was saying, Mark, please help me.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you went next to me and you said, May, you can do that. I trust you. You can do that. And then my hands were shaking and all that. My brain went blank. But we got the drone back, right?
Yeah, with the drones, you just need to.
Yeah,
everybody just needs a little practice with the drones, right?
Yeah. But I truly appreciate that you are such a great teacher. You know my capacity, and you forced me to take the risk. Right. So
I should, right? I mean, you should push people a little bit out of their comfort zone, right? They have to, I'm not going to let your drone crash, but
yeah. You were next to me. You
make sure you can
maybe
do it.
You will grab it when you see really it's happening, right? Maybe you could help me, but you watched me and you trained me in that sense. So truly appreciate that. I think this is not particularly to me. I believe many of your members in the tour, you help them in various ways, but always attend to the need and push them to achieve a greater capacity if you can. If they can. So I truly appreciate that. So Mark, there are many questions in the chat box. I will skip the ones with technical element in that. I know you don't like technical questions. Let's just skip that if it's too much. I will pick the ones.
Well, it's more that just, we
More
only
general.
have so much time here, right?
Yeah.
Things can, feel free. I mean, if people can join me out there in the field, then, we can go, we can go through all the technical stuff too, but it's just how much time we have.
Next trip to Chile, like 5 days on the boat, you can
then
ask your
we
question
can answer
anytime.
all the technical stuff you want. Come down on one of our boating trips.
So let me go through the questions and read the questions to you. The first question was, Marc, during each of your exploration, when and how do you find opportunities of capturing small things versus grand landscape and balance them? I believe the small things means an intimate shot.
That's a great question. That's a terrific question, because the ability to capture small things lives within you. It's not the landscape forcing itself upon you. It's a very personal thing. It's a very personal connection that you have, with what's around you. I mean, we can all find some small thing, I'm sure, in our backyards, that could make a great photo, right? So I think that the big difference between, grandiose, huge, deep landscapes and really intimate scenes is that you can't pre-visualize them, right? You don't necessarily know. I mean, assuming you haven't seen somebody else's photos of the location, right? Assuming you haven't seen photos of the location, you don't have a way of knowing where or how, these types of scenes could come along. When I showed that image of the leaf or some other abstracts I have, there was no knowing that scene was going to be there until I stumbled across it. And I think sometimes you have to force yourself to look small and look for those types of things. Look for, those soft light kind of opportunities, to shoot small scenes. But, people ask me all the time when we go into the field, what lens should I bring? What are we shooting? What is all the technical stuff? And what do I say to those people? What I say to them.
Everything with you.
Bring everything. And that's why I say that, though, right? I mean, if we all look back at some of our very best images that we've ever taken in our life, I bet, plenty of them were not pre-visualized, especially when it's an intimate scene or a telephoto, kind of scene where it's just a scene within a scene, right? Because those types of things, they require very specific, light and atmosphere and timing, to get them right. And you don't know the best, no matter how good you are at photography, you don't know when those scenes are going to come. You can try to look for them, right? You can dedicate yourself to that, but it's not a look for a background focal point and then use layers, leading lines, or framing, to frame, to draw the eye through. It's not any of that, right? It's just, they're just there, right? Intimate scenes, all the same rules of light still apply, though, right? Like light is what it is, right? If the light's at your back and it's casting a big ugly shadow all over the halfway through the shot, it's probably not going to work. But I mean, that's a terrific question, and that's why you always take all your gear with you, because you can't pre-visualize everything.
Okay, second question. Thank you, Marc. Well done. Second question, how do you view AI empowering post-processing and its impact to landscape photography?
Well, I think that when people say AI, they're talking about something that's generative, right? So something that is generative is no longer photography. Like, we can't get those two things confused. Even if you move something around in Photoshop, it was still the form and the light and the color, and that thing was all taken with a camera, right? And I am the one as an artist that is fully making the decision to move that thing or adjust that thing, right? Whereas, with a prompt with something, to do with AI, you're asking something else to make the decision. You can give it some guardrails, you can give it some guidelines, but you don't know how it works. Nobody does. And you don't know exactly what decision it's going to come up with. You don't know exactly what it's going to do. Right? You might like what it does, you might not like what it does, you might be able to refine what it does, but ultimately, like, there's a point along the way where you, as an artist, have lost control of your art. And it is now not only your art, it is also the AI. It is something else besides just you. So, when you're generating things, you're not doing photography. Like, could you have a fulfilling visual experience that is representative of a mood or a time or a place? Yes, you could. I believe that you could. You might see a time where, AI is aiding people in the post-processing. And for me, I guess, that doesn't, as long as you're not asking AI to generate, form that could never possibly be there, I guess, I don't really have a huge problem with it. I mean, for me as an artist, and I think I speak for most artists when I say that, like, I want to be in control of my art. Like, it's me. This is personal expression. That's what art is. So, fundamentally, though, like on a more generalized level, I don't really see AI as a threat to photography or landscape photography. It's a fundamentally like different thing. Nobody that I know is going to go on a 3 week long trip to Antarctica with us, and then come back and then say, AI, generate me a bunch of pictures of Antarctica. Right. I mean, that just defeats the whole point, right? I mean, the whole point of photography is that was your experience, right? You can't like regenerate your experience. It's not the same thing. I mean, it would be the same as coming back and asking a painter to, like, hey, paint me some pictures of Antarctica to remember my experience by. It's why people don't do that, right? So yeah, I mean, fundamentally, they're just very, very, very different things. Could there be some crossover there? Yeah, I mean, absolutely, there could be some crossover. One thing that I always put on my social media is, I make sure that people know that this is not generated, right? And I think that you are kind of in a transitional time right now. So, like, it was similar when Photoshop came out too. It's the general public doesn't really quite understand like what AI is being used for and what it's not. It also, the general public doesn't understand like how to know whether something's AI or not. I think it's pretty clear to us photographers, what's AI and what's not most of the time. But if it's not clear, let me tell you, AI knows what AI is. All right. So you can always ask AI if it's AI. All right. And you can also go to an AI detection, program, even if you wanted to, like Sight Engine, and you can ask it, hey, is this image AI? So, and by that, I mean fully generated. It's, definitely something that in the future is going to be embedded a lot more in the information that we absorb, on a day-to-day basis, because it can't not be. AI will eventually become so powerful that, throughout all aspects of visual media, it could be completely indistinguishable. And, there's just too much riding on not letting that happen, right? There's just too many people that need to be able to know, whether it's an image that's for sale at an auction at a big, Sotheby's or something like that, or if it's a real estate, or if it's for law enforcement or forensics, or if it's for documentary purposes or mapping, or whatever it's for, whatever your image is for. There's too much reason for us to be able to know, to be able to prove if we need to that an image originated as a raw file or an image was generated. And I think that in the future, it's going to be a whole lot easier for us to tell, which is which. It's not going to be harder. I think that we're just kind of in a formative time here, with that whole, mess. And I think that, much like, we did back in the film days when Photoshop came out, if you want to tell people, hey, that, I don't add skies to my shot, or if I, just tell people what you do and what you don't do, and it's pretty easy to tell these days, I think. So that's kind of my long answer to that question. There's a lot of, we don't really know how it's all going to develop. But I mean, fundamentally, I see them as very different things, but with a potential for a little bit of crossover, maybe in the area of post-processing.
Mhm. Okay, thanks, Mark. So, how do you protect your camera when taking pictures during the storm?
I don't. If you've seen my camera, you know that it doesn't have much paint left on it right now. Um, yeah, I mean, that's just, I think if you look at all professionals, we generally abuse our equipment. And I think that, first of all, it's a lot tougher than people think it is. Unless you drop that lens, right on a rock or something. I mean, right, on the glass or something, you're not going to really be able to do that much to it. I mean, sometimes it gets wet, and we know that if it gets wet, then potentially there could be internal condensation, at some point later. So, we need to get it dried out when we get back to the boat, I even put it in my sleeping bag at night, sometimes put a lens in my sleeping bag if it got really, really wet. But, yeah, I think that it is just kind of part of being a professional, that you do, have to go out there and really use your equipment. I think people are way too protective of their equipment. And I think that that's also it's a very big difference between professionals and amateurs too in that regard. Usually amateurs have a lot higher regard for their gear. They're very organized. Everything's very tidy. Everything's very clean. And you look at us professionals, and we're just throwing the gear
That's true,
around, and
right?
all the paint scraped off it, and it's just. I think it's just kind of the way it goes, But the camera's tougher than you think it is. Certainly, I don't use any rain covers or crazy stuff like that. I mean, it's just super hard to work with those, and I'm also fast too, I don't have my camera out for like a really long period of time, in the wet. And I keep going back to the wet because that's the thing that's going to wreck your camera. Snow's not going to wreck your camera. Cold's not going to wreck your camera unless it's like, -30, -40. And even then it's not going to wreck it permanently. I mean, really, when we look at all the stuff we have to face in nature, I would say that wet is the biggest thing, unless maybe you have a sandstorm, right? If you have a sandstorm, don't change lenses, obviously, in a sandstorm, but in those cases, you just got to try to minimize, just try to make your decisions fast, get the shot, put the stuff back away, and sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, next question is, which drone did you use?
All of them. Yeah, from from DJI, of course, right? I mean,
Yeah.
come on, who doesn't love DJI? They're they're amazing. They're such a
Yeah.
good company too. I mean, they even have great customer service and everything. I mean, it's just they're a wonderful company. They make unbelievable gear for photographers. I mean, not just video, like some drones, not just FPV, not I mean, but they do the photography stuff. They have, bought Hasselblad for a reason. They have wonderful optics, great dynamic range, great sensors, great control, easy user interface. I mean, there's nothing like them. I mean, so I've used almost every drone that they've ever come out with. I mean, at least, I don't use the really big, Inspire or whatever, where you're taking the whole Sony camera up into the air. That's just not me, because the optics are good enough, right now. I mean, especially with the Pro 4. I mean,
Mhm.
you look at the optics in the Pro 3 and the Pro 4. I mean, that's definitely good enough for, high resolution reproductions of the images. So, yeah, I mean, right now I'm using the Pro 4.
Mhm. Yeah, I could add like whatever comes out as the most advanced, you have to have your hands on that first time, right? Like
Yeah,
first
drone,
1
like I
month.
said,
Yeah.
I mean, drone technology is like cameras in 2006, you know, it's just it's advancing so fast.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, just little background information. We really appreciate that you give your drone to the members in the tour who does not have, right? Who don't have a drone, you give your, even if they're brand new, they don't know how to fly a drone, you still give it to
Yeah,
them, you know.
yeah.
It's,
We
yeah,
have lost 9 drones that way, but you know, it's worth
yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
worth it. You know,
Thank you,
hey,
Mark.
drones is like you gotta get your hands on one and just fly. People aren't just gonna love drones usually. People are not gonna love drones the first time they ever see one, right? It's like it's very much an acquired taste. And like the once you kind of flown enough times to get over the
Yeah,
trepidation, you know,
yeah.
you kind of flown enough times to be comfortable with it, then you really start loving it as an artistic tool, but only then, right? You have to first you just got to push through that. So I do that as a way to get people to try new things and kind of open new doors for them photographically.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. So next question, is drone allowed in national park in Patagonia?
No, it is not, but um a lot of, yeah, if we really get into this. Okay, so I mean, a lot of drone laws are on the books, but they're not enforced, right? And I think that everybody probably has seen pictures of drone taken with a drone from the parks, at least on the Argentina side, right?
Mm.
So, look, there's a couple ways that you can go look at this, right? I mean, if you're flying in the wilderness and you're not next to any other people, and there's not anybody coming around to enforce any of these, you know, rules or regulations, and everybody's kind of doing it, then, you know, you got to figure that the law is on the books just so that, you know, people, if they are doing something irresponsible with their drone, can be held liable for that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of drones fall into that category, right? A lot of the things that we do with drones, um, you know, flying up to 8,000 meters, you know, on K2 in Pakistan. I mean, technically, you're not supposed to fly up to 8,000 meters. But, you know, if you're, you know, 5 meters from the mountain, you know, it's not what's going to happen. It's not like you're going to hit a plane. You know, people do it for search and rescue. They do it for, you know, all sorts of different reasons. Technically, it's not allowed, but people do it, right? I think most drone laws are the way that they are so that if people do something irresponsible, they can be held liable. So most drone laws revolve around cities. They revolve around cinematography, real estate, you know, commercial uses that are around people that are, you know, meant to protect either people or animals or something, or even the experience of other users. So if you're not flying near any other people, if you're not flying near any other animals, if you're not flying in restricted airspace, if you're not, you know, doing any of these things, then you're not going to get in trouble doing it. So, I mean, do I fly in national parks? No. Do I fly over 120 meters? Yes. You know, there's definitely things that I do that are technically, you know, they're not, you're not supposed, legally, you're not supposed to do them, but everybody does it. And I think that, you know, with drones, you're just going to see a refinement, you know, of those types of laws, you know, in future years to come. But for right now, I think that if somebody was going to Patagonia and they asked, should I fly a drone in a national park? I would definitely tell them no. But what you can do is you can stand outside the national park and that drone, you know what, that Pro 4, I've had that thing 10 kilometers away from where I was flying. Like you can fly a long ways, and there's no rule that says you can't fly over the park. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Next question. Could you share how do you equip your drone model? How to uh, how to do battery backup in wilderness.
Oh man, that's the tough one, right? I mean, 'cause there's nothing that can charge a drone in the wilderness, not if you're going to be there for a long time. I mean, you can buy battery packs, but I mean, look, the TSA, if you're in America, you have TSA, right, as the airline authority. So, the maximum size battery pack that they let you bring for a power bank is 25,600 milliamp hours. That entire battery pack is not enough to charge a Mavic Pro 4 battery once, not even once. So there really is no battery source that you could bring that would be portable, like on an airplane, that to a location and then into the wilderness, right? So you're stuck either bringing a very, very big solar charger. You can buy some $1,000 solar charger, that weighs, 2 or 3 kilos and is, 5 feet across, 4 feet across, something like that, and you can, a charger like that can probably charge 2 batteries a day, 2.5 batteries a day, but they're heavy, they're kind of unwieldy. A small solar charger like the kind that you can carry on your backpack, they won't even charge one Mavic Pro 4 battery per day, so probably your best bet is just to bring more batteries, definitely, if you're gonna, there's kind of a ratio there where it depends on how long you're spending in the wilderness. Like when we take our groups out for 8 days, we recommend 8 batteries. If I was going to be there for 3 weeks, I probably would not bring more than 8 batteries. I think if I was going to be there for 3 weeks in the wilderness, then I would have to bring a solar charger at that point. But there's kind of a cost and weight to reward, ratio with the charging that you just have to look at. One thing I would point out too is that DJI drone batteries, they do discharge. Um, if you have an Air series, it's at day 5. And if you have a Pro series, it's at day 9. So 9 days after you have charged the battery, it's just going to suddenly discharge down to 63%. And the way to stop that from happening is to power the drone on and then power it back off again. And that's it. When you do that, you reset the clock on the battery so that it doesn't accidentally discharge. And I mean, even when it's a non-wilderness trip, maybe we're on a boat in Patagonia and all of a sudden somebody goes to fly their drone and they're like, oh no, all my batteries are at 60%. Now what do I do? Because they charged them a week ago, at home when they were preparing for the trip. So that's just a little thing you got to watch out for there. But yeah, as far as charging in the field goes, it's tricky. I mean, they take a lot of battery, but at the other hand, it's amazing that we have a thing that weighs more than a kilogram that can go 10 kilometers away and come back all on a battery this size. I mean, and take 100 megapixel shots, right? I mean, it's mind blowing that we can even do that. So, let's not get greedy, I guess.
Yes. Hey, Mark, do you know the maximum battery you can take in to the airplane? If
Well,
I have
that's
10
as I just
batteries.
mentioned, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's 25,600 milliamp hours.
The total, the
Yeah,
total
so what that
capacity.
is in terms of watts, that's a 100-watt battery. You can take up to 160-watt battery, but not more than 2 of them. So drones, the new Pro 4 is 95 watts. They were made sure to not go over that 100-watt because right now you can still take an unlimited amount of batteries that are 100 watts or less on an airplane. Now, if you have a big brick of batteries, like I had a trip last summer where I brought 29 drone batteries through TSA. So you got a huge brick that weighs 30 pounds, drone batteries, they ask you to put that in a bin by itself, just so it's spread out, just so they can scan it better. But there's no rule
No
against
limit.
it. Canada has a law that says 15 batteries of 100 watts or less, but personally, I've taken 29 batteries through Canada, and they didn't say anything. Certain airlines, like I know Qatar Airlines has a 1,000 watt total limit. So then you just get into like specifics of airlines. You know, some of them will regulate it a little bit, but most of them really don't know what to do in that situation, and they'll probably just let it slide if you're nice about it. Because I mean, who has more than 1,000 watts of batteries anyway, right?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. There's still a lot of questions in the chat box. I will pick the three closest to what we have asked, and probably we need to end the session before we let our president, Mr. Larry Den, to wrap it up for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's already 11 p.m. now in the East. Yeah. So next question. Mark, could you please briefly introduce your book? I think this is a good
sorry. Yeah,
question.
as I mentioned,
Yeah.
yeah, so The Way Home is both a written book and a photographic book. As you can see here, it's really big. It's kind of sitting on the table behind me, but now you can see how big it is.
Mm.
So we really spared no expense on the printing of the book. I wanted to make a hand-bound, traditional oversized coffee table book with extremely high quality printing, but it's also a written book. So there's about 80 pages of text, 60 to 80 pages, something like that, and it goes along with the 168 giant images that are in there, and we talk all about all sorts of different stories, throughout my career and the state of the art, my thoughts on all sorts of things. It's really a lifetime, project for me. It's something that I had been wanting to do for a really long time, and it took hundreds of hours of work. My good friend Jerry Greer at Mountain Trail Press helped me to design it, did a lot of the proofing for it. He is the best guy in the world at proofing and design. He has done more photo books, I'm pretty sure, than any other living person. So you should look him up if you're thinking about doing a book. It was printed, the actual printing was done in China, because of course, the Chinese just do an unbelievable job printing. They have the best technology for really large, oversized books like this. We went with Artron and their fine art division there, and they got along with Jerry, and they went back and forth for months over all the refinements and everything. And I think at the end of the day, I'm really proud of the book. All of them are hand signed. We only are printed 1,000 ever. It's already more than half sold out right now. And again, you can get it on my website, marcadamus.com.
Yeah, in the chat box, someone already put a link there. So if someone wants to buy it, they can just click the link. Thanks, Mark. There's another question. What do you bring on your backpacking trips? Do you bring your drone? How much does your backpack weight?
Oh man, how much time do we have? That's a very big question.
Speed it up.
That's a very big question, because I could spend 45 minutes answering that question, but I won't. Okay, I'm gonna just tell you that it has a lot to do with the length of the trip and the type of weather and the time of year, right? I have a formula. Okay, so one thing is that for every 10 degrees, so if you start at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, is the lowest temperature you're going to get on the trip. If you start from there and you go down, every 10 degrees Fahrenheit that you go down, you have to add an extra pound. Okay, so that's 1 extra pound. So you've added 15 pounds of just fluff and insulation, by the time you get to minus 30. And then in addition to that, you should probably carry between 1.5 to 2 pounds in weight of food per day, and that food should be about 70% of your calories from fat. So that's a lot of nuts and chocolates and bars and stuff like that. And if you can get your food down to 1.5 pounds, at 70% fat, then that is about 2,000 calories, and 2 pounds is about 2,800 calories or whatever. So I actually have to look at like the calorie to weight ratio of foods, break them down into carbs, proteins, fats, when I'm planning for these trips. And then I also look at, the difficulty of, the terrain. Am I in bear country? What are those wild animals situation like? Do I have to pack everything in bear containers? Can I just take it in stuff sacks? I have to look at, the space ratio too, because a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm just going to do freeze-dried food for everything. Well, freeze-dried food is lightweight and it's easy to fix, but it also takes up quite a bit of space. So there's just so many variables, right? And I have a ratio, I have mathematical formulas for all of them. We're not even going to get into it, but when I was young, and I mean, only in my late 40s now, but when I was in my 20s, I would carry, close to 100 pounds, packs, on certain trips where you're going in the middle of winter, into an area for 2 weeks or whatever, we'd carry some really, really heavy packs. I would say like, 3 weeks from now, I'm supposed to lead a group on a helicopter backpacking trip into a trailless, almost entirely unphotographed area of British Columbia. And we're going to be out there for 9 days. And it's pretty grueling terrain. And it's in late September, so it could get really cold. It could get down, it could snow, in the mountains. I think on that trip with a group, I'm looking at probably about 55 pounds, for a bag weight. I think that you really, as a photographer, you have to go backpacking with other photographers, because backpackers don't understand photographers. Like, there's not a lot of crossover there, right? Like, backpackers are, cutting off the end of their toothbrush because it saves weight, you know, like photographers, we're kind of stuck with some weight, right? I'm going to take my 24 to 240 lens and I'm going to take my 10 to 20 lens, and I'm going to take a mini drone. I'm going to take the Mini 4, with the regular batteries. And I think I'll get my camera gear down to probably about 8 pounds, so I'll probably have the mini and 6 batteries plus 2 lenses and a body. So I get my camera gear down to 8 pounds, but it's also a cold weather trip. It's also a hard trip and it's also a long trip. So that's going to cost me, the other probably 45 pounds just in various other gear. It also depends on how many people you're going with too. If you go with a whole lot of people, you can spread the weight out over, more. So a lot of things to think about there.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And a very last question about positioning the camera to the light. He said, I missed the point you made on positioning the light source or the camera pointing direction when it's noontime, 12 p.m. Can you please elaborate it one more time? Yeah.
That's a really good one. So don't miss that one. Okay, what I said was the stronger the light is. So if you have strong light, the more you want to point the camera into the source of that light. So that means looking right at the sun, or at least it means looking in the same direction as the sun. Now, if the sun's directly overhead, obviously that's not going to work, right? But the sun is almost never directly overhead. The sun is always at an angle. It could be a 50-degree angle, in the middle of summer, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go back to the rainforest that we talked about. So if I'm in a rainforest and I need to take a shot at noon on a sunny day, if I point my camera at that sun, only the fringe of everything is going to be illuminated and everything else is going to be in the shadow. And what that does is that allows me to control the light. Now, I may have a lot of dynamic range, but once I come back and I expand that dynamic range, I'm going to be able to control that light. But if I looked to the side the sun was on my right side, let's say, and I was looking over to 90-degree angle to the left, right? Well, then I'm going to have every leaf and the shadow of every leaf, and every tree and the shadow of every tree. And those shadows are going to be cast upon all of the other subjects in the shot. So because the form of the shadows are distracting, it adds complications to the scene. And when you have a lot of complications, you have an image that's not cohesive anymore. So it's a way of controlling the shape of the shadows in your image and allowing you to use that technique to soften the light, to retain control over the dynamic range and not overcomplicate the image. So we use that technique when the light is very strong and therefore it's casting really harsh shadows onto everything. And I would encourage everybody to try it because that is just a really important thing. I mean, if you look at all the images behind me here in my gallery, in my house, this is all three of them were taken in the middle of the day, and they're all looking back at the light source. So, you know, it's a really important technique to master.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I think right now let's invite our president of APA, Mr. Larry Den, to give a short speech.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, May.
Hey,
Thanks.
Mark, that's absolutely incredible. A lecture with over 700 attendees. It's a massive success. The speak volume about the interest in the topic and the quality of the presentation. Let's give a huge applause, a round of applause for Mark.
Mark, thank you. I guess people on the Zoom, if they're on mute, you cannot hear the, applause, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
so
guys
much,
for
Mark.
having me. I always
Yeah.
say it's a great community. Great community.
Yeah.
I still have a few words, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark, for the absolutely amazing lecture. I actually been a huge fan of yours even since I started doing landscape photography. My friends who join your tours, they won't stop telling me how incredible they were. So honestly, I've been looking forward to this particular day for a long time. Finally meeting you in person was a pleasure. It's a really honor for our association to have you here, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed your talk as much as I did. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to your website just to learn from you your image, the light, the composition, the color. Every time it just makes me say, wow. Your work is like a textbook for us, really. You don't just find this remote place. You show them with such beauty. Thank you for everything you have given to this community. I also want to say a quick thank you to our members. As you know, that this year we start a project to bring world-class photographers close to all of us. You were seeing some of them in Legend of Light and Shadow. And Mark is truly one of the greatest we ever featured. And there's some more to coming. I would like to thank Luis and Sue and the whole team who work behind the scene to reach out to these amazing artists. And a special thanks to May for organizing these talks. Okay. By the way, I received your book, The Way Home. The image look absolutely fabulous. And Mark, thanks once again for being with us today and for sharing your inspiring work. We love it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dan. Really, we enjoyed everything. Mark's presentation and Mr. Dan, your leadership of APA. Right now we have more than 1,000 members and everybody is sharing, and there's so many activities. It's truly amazing. And I second all what Mr. Dan has stated just now, we truly appreciate your time and contribution tonight, Mark, and also your guidance to the general, photographers. Like we interact every day, we learn from each other, they learn from you. So I truly appreciate everything you have done. Now, let me just acknowledge some key members to make this seminar happen. Of course, our president, Mr. Dan, our executive secretary, Yuan Zhen, and our acting president, Andy Lee, also our vice president, Yi Zhen, Vice President Louis Scher, who reminded you to put the date on your notebook, remember, Mark? And
yes.
Yeah, our Vice President Yan Yang Xu Lao Shi, and Vice President Mani Fu, and our member we do. Each of us just take a piece of this event, and then we work on that and make this happen. And I truly would like to thank them on behalf of APA. Also on behalf of APA, we appreciate everybody's support from the co-hosting organizations and everybody here and on YouTube live stream. Thank you so much for your support. I think this is it for tonight. Thank you. We will have a video distributed. If you would like to see that again, we will distribute on a few groups and on Facebook and Instagram, so you can have access to it. I also put my contact in the chat box. If you would like to join APA, you can contact me. I'm in charge of membership, so please contact me. I will direct you to the right person to get that processed.